Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. My name is Annika Kott. I'm a fellow in Group 1 of the Mercy Global Action Emerging Leaders Fellowship, and I will be your moderator today. This series of presentations is a culmination of much hard work over the past 18 months, and this is an incredibly exciting opportunity for all of us in the Mercy Global Action Emerging Leaders Fellowship to share the research and engage in conversation with all of you today. This is the fourth of 9 presentations, and we are very pleased to see participants from all over the world. Thank you for tuning in online or joining us here in person. A few housekeeping notes before we get started if you are joining us via Zoom. This Zoom session has been selected as a meeting rather than a webinar. This allows the presenter and attendees to see each other. You may choose to view today's research presentation in the presenter view rather than gallery view. The option can be selected in the right-hand top corner of your screen. As a gentle reminder, please keep yourself on mute to respect the presentation, and we will have time for questions at the end and engage in a 10-minute Q&A. So please drop your questions in the chat if you're joining us virtually. And finally, this session is going to be recorded for future viewing on the Mercy World website. Today, we'll be diving into the theme of mental health and suicide through a presentation entitled Suicide, the Silence We Share. It's my esteemed honor to be introducing our presenter today, Sister Magdalene Musau, who is a Kenyan religious sister of Mercy. She holds a master's degree in counseling studies from the University of Manchester and a diploma as an international radical aliveness practitioner, among many other competencies. She taught in the Mukuru slums for 11 years and currently works as a counselor and lecturer at the Chemichai Ya Uzuni in Nairobi, which is under the Sisterhoods of Kenya, otherwise known as AOSK. She facilitates workshops nationally with a mission to empower men and women in their communities. Sister Magdalene is the author of the book, The Change You Want Is Within You. And her presentation today is based upon her second newly published book entitled Suicide, the Silence We Share. We are incredibly grateful to learn from her today. And Magdalene, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Annika, for that beautiful introduction. I appreciate welcoming everyone online and here. It is my pleasure to engage with you this morning. The challenge of talking about suicide is that suicide is a very unsettling topic, and my intention is not to upset you, the audience. Let us struggle together to see what we can say about this topic. Just a disclaimer that this presentation may bring up issues and memories about suicide, and it is not my intention to upset anyone about any issue that may come to your memory. My intention is to bring up issues that have come up as a result of suicide, and if we can engage in that to see what we can understand about it. As we dive in, I invite you to just engage with Walela's words. Are you here? Is everyone here? Has everybody got a place to hide? Is everybody safe and warm inside? And so I invite you to be gentle with your heart. People who die of suicide considered as in this study as the marginalized. In Matthew 25, Jesus presents himself as the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, the unwell, those in prison, strangers, homeless, and I want to consider the mental health issue and as people who are going to be in that category. The Mercy International Association was formed to inspire Sisters of Mercy and their associates and to incarnate the spirit of Catherine Macaulay in ways that are creative and appropriate to the needs of our time, as I consider this issue as one of those. My book, therefore, and my presentation is going to focus on those that are impacted by suicide. The questions that I posed to my target group were, have you ever had a family member or someone close to you die of suicide? Please state who it was to you. How did you or those affected heal from the loss? Please speak to the relationship between suicide and silence. And what are your beliefs about suicide? The themes that I came up with from the responses are definition of mental health, suicide, and silence. Why do we need to study suicide? What's the data on suicide? What are the causes of suicide? Suicide effects, the pros and cons of silence, women leaders, and mental health, prevention through the healing circle and the friendship bench, and where is God in all this? In my presentation and my research, silence is a quiescence before, during, and after suicide. Suicidal ideation refers to the thinking about, considering, and planning for suicide. And suicide as the death that is caused by self-directed injurious behavior with the intention of dying. So why do we need to study suicide? I realized, according to WHO 2019, every year 703,000 people die through suicide, and many others attempted. Suicide was the fourth leading source of death among the 15 to 29-year-olds globally. Another reason is because over 77% of global suicides occurred in low and middle income countries. Suicide rates were also high amongst vulnerable groups who experience discrimination, such as refugees and migrants and others. And by far, the strongest risk factor of suicide is a previous suicide attempt. Some of the factors that came up were that mental health disorders, history of suicide in the family, risky behaviors, access to lethal means, adolescent suicide ideation, substance abuse, depression, loss or losses, financial problems, relationship issues, previous suicide attempts, loneliness, guilt, shame, burnout, joblessness, deaths, abuse, serious or chronic illnesses, cultural and religious beliefs that suicide is noble. Some of the causes of suicide include spiritual discrimination, rejection, environmental factors and chronic illnesses, financial constraints and debts, relationships, losses or loss, family history of mental health, and prolonged stress and depression. So what is mental health? For the person, mental health is the ability to recognize, to express, and to regulate emotions. As a community, mental health is the flexibility to live in communion with others, and to the ability to be able to empathize. And therefore, mental health is the harmonious relationship between one's body and mind. And it's also the state of internal equilibrium. What are some of the negative ways of dealing with mental health issues? One, as you can see, is drug abuse and alcohol, silence, other addictions. What are some of the red flags that we look out for? Withdrawal, deep sadness, when we see people are indifferent, loneliness, frequent talk of suicide, strong wish to die or to be killed, giving away precious items, apathy, hopelessness, interest or disinterest in religion, abusive relationships, silence, self-destructive behavior, guilt. These are big ones. Shame, low self-esteem. So, as women leaders, what is the relationship between women leadership and mental health? I noticed recently what I picked that quote from Celine Dion, who said, "I've been dealing with problems with my health for a long time, and it's been really difficult for me to face these challenges and to talk about everything that I have been going through." And the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, while resigning, said, "I no longer have enough in the tank." So, self-care is not selfish. Looking out for one another is a value. How can we create a safety container for ourselves? By creating a space where we can accept ourselves, we can find healing for ourselves, we can work on our spirituality, whatever we believe in, providing ourselves with self-care, connecting with a friend or a family member, love for oneself and others, I think we are better at this, and having empathy for ourselves, and most of all, providing self-compassion. And I saw this as a tool of evaluating how we maintain ourselves in this state. So what stories do I listen to? What movies do I watch? What are the words that are in my music? What company do I keep? And do the words, movies that we watch, the friends that we keep, help us to keep a good mental state? As women leaders, how can we engage with life impacts that make our hearts shiver and our teeth clatter? How can we look for cracks to engage with difference and the feelings that lie hidden under the carpet of our hearts? When life flows, leadership is an experience, and when it does not, what skills help us navigate it. It is cheap to disagree or to write each other off as women leaders. But how can we stay and work through differences? Not necessarily to be friends, rather to stay in relationship with each other. How can we as leaders talk about what truly ails us? As women leading, being led, or leading with each other. When the leadership tasks are done, will we have lost each other? I invite you to focus on the first picture to your left. And just take a moment. Breathe, see, appreciate. The second picture is a sunrise from Kenya. Just notice what you see. What helps you ground when life happens? In my book, I use the healing circle as a way of working through issues that people are able to tell their stories. And I invite you to imagine that you are in that particular circle in the book as we continue with our conversation. The healing circle in our African context, a circle permeates all spheres of life. It represents God. It represents completeness. It shows interconnectedness. And healing, because we are a mixed group, is both for the individual and it is a community healing. As I share about suicide, my challenge is to balance between us having a conversation as members of the healing circle and also being careful not to treat this as a therapeutic group. And then the other one is a friendship bench. Dixon Chibanda of Zimbabwe came up with the friendship bench. He first called it the grandmother's bench. And he took this approach to respond to the depression that was happening in the country. And with limited number of psychiatrists, he realized there are so many grandmothers in a lot of our countries, but in particular in this context. And so he said, how can we use those grandmothers to serve the community in order to deal with the issue of depression? And so he gave them a little training and was able to put them in strategically on benches where when women came with issues or men came with issues, he was able to connect them with these grandmothers and they would help them process what was happening. And so after that, by 2017, over 30,000 people had been served by those grandmothers. 6 months later, the clients were symptom-free. So it's supposed to be very effective. It was noted that grandmothers were more effective at treating depression than doctors. And the grandmothers showed no signs of damage. So everyone benefited. The friendship bench is now being duplicated in many areas in our world, including the US. On a personal level, the reason as to why I engaged with this issue was because I remember as a little girl seeing a teacher hanging on a tree. That was the first suicide case I saw. And then the boy I taught in Guru schools just before COVID committed suicide. Committed actually is not the right one. He died by suicide. I realized that as I was doing this study. And then my nephew, Dana, killed himself in 2022 during COVID time. And it was a reason as to why I don't. I was so ashamed. Felt so much guilt. And I dived in to see what there was in this silence. And so, whom do you remember in your life? Who else would you add to this list that you have erased out of your mind over the years because of guilt, because of shame, especially because of our religious beliefs? And so, as we call to mind those people, I invite you to listen to this song with me.
Behold, he came to mercy. We thank them for allowing us to get into this space. Therefore, how can we support ourselves as leaders in relation to our mental health? We can attend to our wanting. We can call someone. We can look out for each other. Sometimes we are not aware of what is going on for us. Let us not waste our pain. It was meant to serve. We cannot serve from emptiness. And remember, there is always a place for you here. By Magdalene Musau.
Spirit, lead the place. Well, everything is Spirit made a place for you where everything is new. Spirit made a place for you where everything is new. Love has made a place where everything is new.
I'd like to make my acknowledgements to Sister Angela and your team. I thank you, fellas, for being my companions for the last year, 2022-2023. And I thank you all for giving me your ears and being present to my presentation. Thank you.